Alrighty, daily trading recap for Thursday, the 6th of January, 2022. Pretty hard day on that P&L side, as you can tell by the thumbnail, but Knowledge P&L Bank is certainly filling up more and more every single day and just taking everything in stride as it comes. And I'm knowing for certain that this is not going to be even in the top list of big red days that I have in the future of this trading career. And yeah, taking everything in stride as it comes and learning and growing from each and every single one of these trades, every single minute of screen time that we are able to get here in the stock market. So I'll get into the individual breakdown. It really just happened on one ticker, EAR. Just some stupid strategies there. And this was coming off of yesterday, I believe. I was talking about hey, I was able to hold myself, even though it was a red day, able to hold myself pretty accountable, even though it was kind of, D grades and C grades for ideas and execution-wise. It's even to be able to maintain a pretty relative lower red day compared to what the normal green day could or should be. Hey, that's a step in the right direction. If we can get that win rate to continue to start climbing higher as we're stepping into more trades of getting more experience under the belt, those are steps in the right direction to profitability. But today was just a great example of, man, when you have F-graded ideas and apply them with F-graded executions and just becomes like the little fake out fat fingers and just stupidity in myself of what I was thinking and trying to do there. I won't dive in too much to it. I'll leave that for the ticker breakdown. But this was a great example of, hey, that's a result of this is the game that we're playing. This isn't a safe practice environment. This is the real deal. This is the big show, and it's not to be toyed or messed around with. EAR was a great example today of the tickers for this little short pattern setup that I love to be in and love to trade that fit my personality best, I feel. This was a great reminder today of one of those ones that keeps you humble, keeps you in the right mindset, that it's nothing is ever a 100% surefire short. And definitely too, I'll allude into a little bit, I'm going pretty far in it now, more than I want to, but of just how much that little tiny bit of FOMO or little tiny missing out of what I felt I was watching MLUN very hard and very nicely in the pre-market. This is a beautiful, perfect representation of that morning dump pattern. I saw this one popping up on the scanner, watched it all the way through the spike, this level 2. I had enough time to look up borrow fees, look up the dilution of it. American EV startup, 15 million float. They had a PR for their news catalyst today. I was there for all of it and had enough time to be aware of myself and have everything placed and watched the fall all the way down from 6.7. Saw the VWAP turning into a literal V here as that trend is reversing. Was watching it as it's pulling down to that $6 level area, thinking, okay, this could be the time if we're going to pull the trigger. It's kind of now or never right here. This is that little moment, and just said, okay, we'll hold it up. We haven't seen a sharp V mover like this in quite a great time. Let's just let it do what it wants to do. And sure enough, having to be willing to let that go and saying, gosh, shoot, missed it. I was there for it, ready to pull the trigger, but just did not. Not necessarily a thing of stage fright. It was just I like to trade off of what the market sentiment has been there and not just throwing things. I do that a lot with the actual trades themselves, but for the overall pattern of not just anticipating patterns that haven't really proven themselves within a recent amount of time from the previous trading days. But glad to notice that MLUN is certainly adding to that list of, hey, these types of traders are potentially back in this type of market. So keep those scanners up and pre for me and my personal trading style that way. And look for those VWAP projections. That's really my entry point, is that failure to maintain VWAP as the trend reversal sign. And then just an easy, quick little sit as a short, taking your shares off, paying yourself along the way for this little ride down. And of course, even in market hours, still a lot of little downtrend sentiment there on this one. So that was, I can culminate a little bit, and I'm leading to a lot more of what I'm going to talk about for EAR, the individual ticker, but MLUN and then FRLN, the same type of thing that I'll mention that one later as well. That as I was watching it spike in pre, I knew it wasn't going to be a beautiful, like perfect drop off, immediate trend reversal V, upside down V. But even at that, I was seeing it kind of peter at the top and thinking, oh, okay, well, gosh, that was kind of right when I was getting started, ready to doing all my scanners, getting everything set and going, oh, this is not really a pattern. It would kind of be chasing a little low here, just a very speculative short, but I could see this being the top at this point. And sure enough, it just starts dropping from there, does whatever it wants to do the rest of that pre-market, but offers a nice little profit opportunity off of that little high. And of course, that just it adds that little FOMO factor. And it's not like I was just so wrapped up in it. I was totally aware of it and labeling it to say that, hey, I see you and I recognize you're there. Like I'll also mention on the ear of the kind of revenge trading, to say, or trying to make up those losses. It's not like I don't feel I was doing that, but I could totally 100% recognize those thoughts coming to the forefront of my brain of just saying, oh, well, I could see something happening from here, gosh, and we could recuperate some of those losses. And then just that little shun, that secondary voice saying, no, we do not want to think that way. That is not how trading works. Does the chart say that there's a pattern there? Then that's all that matters, and going off of that. But having those voices there, I mean, you can't ignore them. I have to address them, that they are in the room, and understand that they don't own my mental process, and have to eliminate them, understand that they are there, and see if they do have any voice of reason, of course, but then understand that if their stay is overwelcome, then just let them leave the room as they are and just go the other side. Other things I wrote in my journal here, thinking about how I get very blankety with some of my entries in pre-market, that it's not very hard or defined on specific entry points or exit points for if I'm shorting in pre-market or looking for a long bias trade in pre-market. I feel like I end up doing that at times because I'm just trying to give my mental capital a break, or save some mental capital as, okay, I think the trend for this chart is going to be to the upside, and I'm not so concerned that I have to be in such a precise entry point. So I'm going to get not necessarily a starter position here, but I'm going to establish a position here so I can comfortably know that I'm in the trade while also looking at other scanners on the day, other charts still in pre-market, everything that's going on, and also kind of clear my head out of the realm of, okay, now it's market time and volume's coming in. Now I have to also get a position at the same time while also watch the action of the chart. I feel like I can kind of free myself up and offer myself some mental space by getting a little broad with my paint strokes of where and when I try to place some of these trades in pre-market. And I can get away with that a lot of times, like even just, for example, on SPY today, if this was a trade that I was looking to take or bias long today, I mean, anywhere around this little range of $1 range of 468 to 469, you can say that, and I can say with certainty, hey, that's $1 range. That's pretty wide of a range, but I can't knock myself so hard because I can say, oh, hey, there's a little double bottom here. But if I pick this chart up like 5 minutes later and playing off of that sentiment, okay, yes, I can still see that the trade is there. And because I missed it a few minutes, I can give myself a little bit of leeway that way. There's a lot of cases where the exact opposite is true. And I followed that up in my journal here, what I wrote today with of trades, especially with the personality and type of kind of scalpy trades that I do like to take. If I'm not taking them from a position of power, then I end up in a losing position pretty much 100% of the time, just as a psychological standpoint, because it ends up being this, okay, I see the chart, I recognize a potential pattern that could play out from here, I establish a trade. Maybe it's that, what I was mentioning of the kind of blanket broad entry point of, hey, I don't think this is like the precise high to enter the trade here or the precise low, vice versa. But I do think the overall trend and characteristic for this stock today is going to be up or down, whatever it is. And then going off of that, what was it? Lost my train of thought there. If I'm letting it just do what it wants to do and letting the trade confirm itself first before I actually do establish an entry point. Huddy was mentioning this yesterday in that chat. I saw. I thought that was a great point as well. There's just a fine line of writing between identifying the trade, waiting for it to let it actually prove itself, and then entering the position, and then a difference between that and chasing. And then on the flip side of that, of getting anticipatory or speculation with a trade and just kind of like throwing money at the wind, of just the same thing of both sides of that. Of there is just a very fine line of between chasing and actually letting a trade confirm itself. And for some of these, for really some of the lack of follow through that's been seen on the long side for some of those trades, short side is an entirely different story. But man, it's really, I feel for me, establishing a position of power is the phrase that came to mind. Of I have to be sitting in these trades from a greater, higher advantage point, or if alongside vice versa, again, of having the trade being almost so disconnected from my entry price that it just becomes, that entry point doesn't become a factor anymore, and the chart works out how it works out. And Of course, I love to be in that position where it's already just so much in the money, and then I can deal with the problems of, okay, where am I going to pay myself here now? Like, that's a great problem to have, but that's why I need to get myself more, because when I end up falling on the wayside of, take this example for SPY. If this was a small capper type of stock trading today of, okay, I think there's a long, or let's say I think there was a short position that just is kind of random, just looking at this chart for how it was today. Okay, I think there's going to be a short bias here today on SPY. I'll go ahead and start in kind of blanketing short here, how I normally do. This is kind of my mentality going through in pre-market of, okay, yeah, I can see a little bias here on SPY to go short. Let's play something off of that. So let's get a little starter position, or what ends up being the actual position size. And then we get a starter short and end up like, maybe we get here around this point as it just crosses back above 468.50. Okay, yeah, give it a little room to run. Okay, double top, good. Now we're sitting here still, letting it do what it wants to do. And sure enough, it starts riding, gets a little spike out of the gate. Again, this is like just a random example if this was a small cap type of mover stock. But this is the type of mentality that I used to go with of, gosh, now I'm in this trade of short, and I still think there's a short bias, but gosh, okay, it's riding pretty strongly with strength. Okay, we get this little red candle here that could be a rejection around this little pre-market highs. Okay, good. That's a little sit. Oh no, now it's spiking to these new little relative highs here. Okay, how much more? This just becomes an ever increasing level of risk. And okay, am I going to give it to the next key level of 470? Oh, okay, it just broke upwards of 470. It just retested a little double top area here. Oh, okay, do I get it? So through all of that, that was just an example of the mindset that I sometimes have to force myself into with that little blanket entry mindset in pre-markets of, I can work myself into some stupid situations and trades that become entirely different than what I was anticipating, because it wasn't necessarily a trade meant to do that. And I think that's what I became so successful with on that paper trading run, and what I want to do more and more with this trading career of, if this chart, if price action really doesn't truly follow what I think it's going to do, just cut it immediately, have zero hesitation, be able to give up the day trade, the cash in the cash account, and just refresh the perspective again, because that perspective is so much more valuable than any day trade could ever be, any cash in the cash account could ever be, because especially in year two, I could totally feel that it was just it's not like I was just so overblown, misguided of what it was. I was in the right direction. It's you got to be short bias on these tickers, but it just becomes the timing factor of when and where and why should we be getting in at these times. Absolutely long-winded intro for that, and I think that's all I wanted to mention for that introduction. Let's do some market dollar volume just as a reference. We are 46 minutes after the close here. Nasdaq is showing $270 billion volume, NYSE $336 billion volume, OTC's $2 billion volume on the day. Start jumping right in on EAR. American Medical Device Company, 23 million floater, just an abysmal daily chart that we love to see as a short on these types of plays. Very cheap borrows that I was seeing through, easy to borrow that I was seeing through Trade Zero. The news catalyst that I saw was in their 8K, their previously disclosed criminal probe is no longer active. So if that's going to push the stock this much, okay, whatever. But yeah, that's all I want to mention for it. Just the fundamentals of the stock before we get into it. First entry of a short. Seeing this thing pop up. Again, I'll kind of rewind the clock of where I was at mentally, of kind of missing that MULN trade. Not missing it, but just seeing there being a part of it. And okay, well, there it went. I perfectly predicted it. Same thing with FRLN that I'll mention next after this ticker of the... Okay, I could definitely see this being the top of the ticker, and then, of course, it just kind of falling off, grinding that from there and going, oh, okay, well, there's another one that I missed of. So this just kind of becomes subconsciously that, okay, we're getting a nice percentage move here. Closed at this point, percentage move 7. Yesterday was trading at 4.5. Whatever math that is at this point, but a pretty decent percentage move and gaining a lot of dollar volume pretty quickly there. So getting pretty cheeky and getting, I think, because of those little two FOMO factors, and I was doing a lot of preparation work beforehand anyway, before this ticker even popped up. So it wasn't a just kind of on a whim type of thing that I just saw it and it just had to have it. It was maybe it came from a little bit more place as well for me too, of just kind of overconfidence, maybe that I was just so prepared, or just had seen all these work out that, oh, this one is another one, it's just got to work out the same thing. But a great reminder that they are not 100%. They do not all do the exact same thing. It is an ever-growing and ever-adapting, changing market. Starting in short with a very, very speculative and very, very stupid, terrible fill at 710. It's 710 area here when, I could have been waiting a little bit more to get a little cheeky higher here. Just seeing some volume exhaust. Let's do, this perspective a little bit better for what we're seeing at that time frame of, we're kind of getting double toppy on these candles here. Volumes are showing very ejaculative is the word that's coming to mind. What is the word for that? Of just overgrown, of just too much volume at one point. So, hey, that could be a potential sign for exhaustion of the trade or the start of the trend reversal. So very, very speculative. And I knew that coming forehand of, hey, this is a top picking trade. And I am subject to the whim of the wind. And this is wrote in my journal here of, I do not want to be in this game, because all patterns and all trades are a game against certain and key specific players. And really this top picking style of trade is just a game against the powers that be. This is all algorithmic run up that's just creating this. And it's just at some point in matter of when the plug is pulled, and it's all just derived by who, when, and where, and what decides to push this thing, because it's not necessarily retail traders that are pushing this thing with buying power to the upside. They're going to just get clobbered whenever the actual overhead comes in on this thing. And the top picking short strategy is totally a guessing game. And sometimes you can be proven right and you get an awesome, perfect little beautiful rejection, and you look like an absolute genius. And I thought that's what I was going to be kind of scathing myself away with this little trade, as this little red candle was being put in with big volume, that, we're going to break VWAP here, we're going to break 6A, and it's going to be a nice little, it could hold up similar to what FRLN did today, or what similar type of thing, that, hey, we get a pullback below VWAP, but maybe we get a little fluctuation, little dance around before market open, and then it does whatever it wants to do there. But man, just got absolutely smoked with a high of day test there. And I was totally ready and willing and to be cutting at high of day. And I knew that was going to be a little bit wider, and I was going to have to be taking a little bit of slippage there for how many times I've done this in the past of, I may get a little filled. So maybe I have my order ready at 7.6-ish area. But of course, after this big red candle, I was putting in limit cover orders at where I was looking to cover, of like 6.5, 6.6 almost, that I was ready to cover half the position, start paying myself a long way, have those orders in so I could be closer to the top of that fill entry window if we just did get a quick little fall off there. So I could get filled pretty relatively quickly there. But sure enough, as we start spiking against me, I try to put it in cover orders to get myself out as it's spiking past my risk level, and it's not being able to fill because I still have other orders in, and totally screwing myself over. And before I know it, it's already at $8. Then it gets to that point of, it's pretty exhaustive here. I know I don't want to be covering into this this weakness or strength, whatever way you want to look at it. Of this is exactly where they want to get you out, and just playing along with that of, maybe I wait a little bit and it starts to pull back to 7.5. Maybe I can get filled there again. But no, made a mistake. Let's correct it right now. Let's just get out of it. Pay the price for it. We certainly paid a big price for it. 11% cut that mistake ended up being there on a pretty decent size position for that one. And good cut, to say the least. If I had tried to wait, that's a great reminder for, if you make a mistake, just fix it. If it did start to fall off and I was still holding this thing, I think I would have ingrained a few more bad patterns that I would not want to have going forward in the future. So I'm glad it did actually have a little bit more juice left in it after that exit as well. But then again, like I'm mentioning a little bit, alluding to in the introduction, kind of the thoughts of, I know there's still backside in this chart. We're getting exhaustive here. We're getting these little 3 successive perks of just how many times I think there is a little magic number here when it does have these it does have the initial perk. You get the short squeeze fake out. We've got another new high of day attempt here to get in those shorts who were trying to play in this little toppy area here. Sometimes, or I would say the majority of the time, that ends up being relatively around the top for these little pre-market moves. And again, that's the line of when I'm now trying to reel myself back in. We just took pretty big loss there. Shake it off. Let's move on to the next one. but also open the perspective and say, hey, I think there's still backside in this chart, and reeling in, okay, am I just trying to make up money for that we lost in this chart on that first trade, on that first mistake, or is there actually a trade here? And had I been watching this one, playing it harder, watching at level 2, looking for more downside here, maybe I could have gotten a position risking that high of 884, and knowing that same factor that I just mentioned of, gosh, for this thing to just keep doing these little spikes, it surely can. Crazier things have happened, but it gets less opportune that happens over and over and over again, these little big green candle squeezes. The backside could potentially be in this one. It does whatever it wants to do in market hours, but I'm just looking still for this pre-market trade. But then I get into this rationale of, okay, now it had this big red candle here. I think the backside is in. And I was just convincing myself, like, okay, I'm letting the trade, the backside actually work out. I'm not getting too gung-ho, gunslingery, trying to pick another top because I screwed myself over doing that the first time. I'll give it a little bit more space. And gosh, again, I end up picking pretty much like the bottom almost of this little trend sentiment of this. It's just such a thin line of what becomes the same thing that I mentioned in the introduction, that what is chasing and what is letting on this specific one, the backside, actually come in. Overall on this entire thing as well, this chart never broke VWAP in pre. When my entire morning time strategy is let the chart the price action fail to maintain VWAP and use that as your entry point using risk of high a day around that range. This chart failed to ever break, of course, in this little chop of what the initial spike was, but it never broke VWAP in pre-market. And then when it does get to market hours and then eventually does have this little sell-off, breaks to the downside of VWAP, never breaks to the upside of VWAP again, minus the little afternoon session. But for this morning session, fails to ever, gets rejected, 1, 2, 3, one time here, 1, 2, call it there, again here. It doesn't, these definitely do not work out that perfectly every single time, but this one did. For whatever reason, VWAP became a point of inflection. And this ticker, for some reason, I traded based off of VWAP 0, none, on the one that respected VWAP pretty much perfectly the entire day, regardless of afternoon session. But that's besides the point. Gosh, yeah. Great lessons to learn from. And this was, the big loser kahuna for the day on the P&L side. This was the 2 real trades that I had. Everything else, other than trying to go long a little bit on FRLN, was paper. Just kind of limiting myself of, okay, I know these were stupid trades, but I'm still just going to keep myself paper for everything else I do. And I'm going to kind of push a little bit harder on the paper side to just continue to say, hey, I was a stupid mistake. We got to do something beyond myself, and we need to put the time in. And I don't want to make that a habit as well. I don't want to put in more work because I was taking a loss. I want every single day, even through the wins, to be putting in more work and not just be defining when and where and why I put in hard work based on the P&L. But regardless of the point, I was also looking at this one in the afternoon session, looking to play a potential for a second day short, looking to short this one in market hours short here, play for the overnight. Very risky and speculative, but I would have done that paper 100%. I just think there's a lot of opportunity that's been shown for the past few charts, first few green day charts, that, hey, second day plays have not allowed for anything really crazy or insane in after hours. Maybe they have a little tiny squeeze, but just if it does go to squeeze, hey, respect it, let it do what it wants to do, go on to the next one. But I think there was easy downside and also PDT day trade avoiding opportunity here that I definitely want to explore a lot more. But they do, Thinkorswim is showing me they do have earnings after the close here. We have not seen those as of yet, so that's why, I did not take a paper short there, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Grade for this idea on the trade, F on both of them, of this picking top style trades. Sometimes it works out great. Sometimes I look like an absolute genius and can kind of get away from these unscathed and just get a nice little quick, easy sit as a short and be out like hands clean with 10, 12% profit even before market open. But sometimes they end up doing a lot like this and just having that little dance around, become these crazy, crazy boys, and great reminders of the scars and the danger that is the stock market, and always being humble to what these things have the potential to do that way. That was ear. Let's get into FRLN right now. Alrighty, so FRLN's first day play. There's British biotech 12-ish million float. News catalyst today was FDA clearance for a new drug application. Whoopee, down trading daily. That again, we love to see death and bleeding of the bag holding longs. They do also have $75 million ATM from November and $250 million shelf from September of 2021. But they could have depleted that quite a ways until now. And again, I don't really factor in any short real trades on that, but if there is excessive overhead, that may influence something that I do to the long side. But certainly it was death and bleeding sentiment on this chart for all the market hours. Really looking at this one and I mentioned it a little bit on ear, but the same thing of, hey, we had this little bounce off VWAP. Hey, it's having this rejection here. I could see that being the top. And sure enough, it gets a pull to VWAP, gets the breakdown to VWAP. Gosh, that would have been a beautiful trade. I was so convicted. Not going to get into it, but not so convicted not convicted, but just like downtrodden of, oh, I missed one. But it's just like, seeing this little bottom being put in here at 2.7. Gosh, it's consolidation. I feel has just been weird on the past of what the overall sentiment of the consolidation is for really any type of chart in the past few weeks, months, maybe even of market type of, because in that hot 2020 market, I remember Tim Bowen saying in one of those Steady Trade podcasts that, yeah, consolidation before the hot 2020 market used to be a bearish sign that, hey, it's seeing this consolidation point, it's not getting the breakout, it's not doing what it should be doing according to the pattern. That's a bearish sign, get in. Whereas into 2020, that totally shifted. That consolidation was an incredibly huge bullish sign that, if it's building off of that, if it's just like rearing ready to go, it is just accumulating this like magmatic volume and just ready to explode like a volcano. Whereas now we're kind of in this little no man's land of, you can see both sides of it, of when and where consolidation can be a benefactor to whatever side you're looking for, or be a little detriment and just kind of start to fade off of that and not really have any point of influence off of that consolidation. So tried to play it a little bit long with 200 shares. I show that here with these ones of 200 shares trying to go long on each of those little stabs, keeping a relatively small position size on those, just looking to, even if it does start to peter out in taking off some amount of shares, even just looking for, hey, we got a little tapped at 2.9. It's a decent little trade there off of that little relative bottom around 270-ish. But was just getting those fake out stop outs on both of those, and not very awesome entries and exits on either of those. Just kind of like, okay, it kind of is holding here. And this one was just very weird, this second trade. Sizing in again here after it did rebottom or get back to the upside of that 2.7 area. And then again, kind of more sizing in around 270-ish, 272, but then cutting perfectly at a bottom here of 265-ish. Terrible sell on those, but it's just like, okay, well, that's the sentiment. It's dying in death. And sure enough, had just a beating for that first minute candle after that morning bell. And then I'm saying to myself, just even after all of the eager trades, after all the other charts that I was going in as well, that we'll also get into, kind of trying to slap myself with the reality stick that, hey, this chart is saying that it wants to reject longs. And I'm not going to try to defy that. I'm just going to try to listen to say, okay, what are you telling me? You're telling me you don't want to go up. You're telling me you want to go down. Okay, well, I'll follow you down. I'll sell more of you, so help you a little bit to go down. So paper on this short, of course, that everything else besides these two longs and ears were paper on the day. That, hey, let's go short here. Let's risk this. Look for this little bottom that would be kind of a dip and rip style of bottom. Look for the reclaim to VWAP break at this opening price here as a long strategy that I would be looking for. Hey, I want to play to the downside of there. Sure enough, we get a nice little dump below there. I cover initially into that first little pull just to pay myself along the way, and of the 500 shares that I was trading on that bigger size, taking off just enough in that pull. Tries again to find anywhere I can of just a little bit of consolidation, but just fails again and again. A little bit. Chris was seeing a double bottom here of 231. I guess you could certainly call it that, but rejected right through that once again. I cover into that pull as well. just a lot of overall sentiment for death. In this last little cover here, I just leave, again, that little lottery ticket on of whatever I had 100 shares left at this point to say, hey, I've paid myself along the way, and I've paid for the trade that I was here for. But I still think there's potentially more death upon it, but I'm not going to just go crazy with a 50% position left on this trade. I'm not going to play with fire that way. So still leave that little lottery ticket on. And I'm just kind of realizing at these points here that, okay, I don't want to play with fire that much. And I've, this price level here for where it's sitting, and especially for how far away from VWAP it is, the percentage move away from VWAP. Yeah, I can't argue with that. It did go a little bit further, certainly continued to drop off, and even after the close here, all the way down to 186.18, I'm showing it drop to there as a low. But yeah, I certainly can't complain on that last cover for just the final few shares for what I did. For the trade that I did come for, man, how many times these things have had a little bit of a dip, bounce, tried to retrace back to VWAP, have just a little bit of, even if it's a sideways close or afternoon session, trying to force a chart like this for the still downtrending sentiment, it had quite a black swan. I say black swan, not just a crazy one-time experience, but certainly not typical. I would say that it just has zero amount of bounce whatsoever. Just continues to die off from there, but great chart to keep in the journal books going forward for potential movers similar to this one. I could grade myself for the long trades, idea and execution, both C, just kind of average, just cutting wisely, knowing when the trade is over. Nothing's going to happen from that, and it's kind of speculative as it was already continuing to just look so weak at that 270 point, and obviously not respecting it perfectly technically at 270 itself. For the short trade, I could give myself an A grade for the idea on the trade of respecting what the chart was saying, and then following along with, okay, yeah, proving that it's going to break a low here. It's going to probably do it again with the amount of overhead and bag holders that are still in this thing. Playing off of that sentiment, give myself a B grade for execution. Knowing I could have waited a little bit more, or just given that lottery ticket just a little bit more chance. These are the charts that you give that lottery ticket for, that you just wait till it's just so exhausted that you've already taken your money. Like, the trade is over. You could wait till this thing comes all the way back to your entry point, right, with that little lottery ticket size on. But this is that style of trade you leave that lottery ticket on for, and didn't really capitalize fully on that. That was FRLN MYNZ was the next trader. Again, this was paper. Second day short style trade. It was good to see that in reviewing the chat today that Jack number 2, number 7 had the same idea for MYNZ and also LIXT, which I'll mention next, for the second day style of short fade trades, of these second day sentiments on the days following the first green day trades have just been pretty bearish. And that's what I was alluding to a little bit on ear of, even through the after hours, a little bit getting a position. MYNZ, not so much for how much it was sold off during that market hours day on that first green day yesterday. But for these ones that, even through after hours and market hours especially, it's just been kind of, call it a rest day, but certainly opportunity to play these to the downside, that there's just a little bit of selling, a lot of bit of selling, continuing to push these things down from where they're at opening the day. $18 borrow fees that I mentioned, that one. FRLN, it doesn't matter. $18 borrow fees that I had for these. I just continue to do that as a reference point for myself to just go through the motions of, hey, what would borrow fees be for these trades? Just continue to, like, for how I'm using the web browser now through TradeZero as well. Okay, would I be doing this, blah, blah, blah. Continuing to keep that ritual, even though I am paper. This is just as a fundamentals, German cancer diagnostic company, 3 million float that I'm seeing here. News catalyst today was they're gaining some exclusive rights to, or the news catalyst yesterday was they are gaining some exclusive rights to cancer detection technology. Crazy stuff. They got lots of warrants not yet registered. That is just the fundamentals on it. And yeah, looking at a starting in of what I thought was going to be, again, of, okay, I'm seeing a dump off here and gosh, I'm thinking with LIXT, I'll mention here next that I was already starting in a short position there of, I should have also started in MYNZ again. Compiling off the top of all the other little FOMOs or just different things that I was going off of there. Just saying, okay, well, you do what you want to do. It's not like crazy volume or like I just missed the most beautiful woman in the entire world. Hey, I'll let it do what it wants to do. Sure enough, it does have a little bottom, starts to rise a little bit into market open. It's getting a little choppy, a little toppy, just kind of wider spread, wider action, not so many trades, 10,000 trades that I'm showing here at the end of the day, and these little dojis all throughout the day as well. Show that it wasn't just so beautiful or perfect of a price action mover minute by minute scale. So starting in a little short there with 100 shares paper, as at what I thought was going to be a little top if we didn't get a full VWAP test to form into a rejection. But sure enough, we do climb a little bit higher, end up getting to that 1460 area, reject a VWAP. It does tap a little bit above, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Do get a rejection there at 14.6 and start a nice little short ride, down to new low of day, breaking little pre-market lows, covering along the way there, paying myself as it's not just continuing to die off. And again, leaving another a little bigger bit of a lottery piece on, thinking that I still think there's a bigger sentiment for death on this thing than what it was showing, but just did not want to break down the rest of the morning session and even into the afternoon session. Let it hit that stop there as it started to perk with pretty big volume, the biggest minute volume candle on the day to break to the upside of VWAP there. That did stop me out of those last few shares, but yeah, I could still see this thing having just a little tiny residual down day for the third day, but maybe it's got something in store for it since it's going to be short sale restricted as well for that third day. But nice, decent little 4% trade there. I can't complain at that one, and that leads into, I'll grade myself as a B all around for the idea and the execution. Not beautiful for the idea, not a 10% opportunity, and not absolutely nailing it on the execution side, but we're up there, making progress that way. LIXT mentioned to next. Similar setup, second day play that I was starting in short paper, in pre, kind of blanking that entry, not based on any hard level 2 or time and sales. As you can see by the price action, there really was not anything hard to read off of there. But interesting to see that this one ended up turning into a nice little green day, closing at 0.45% in the green. Alrighty, do what you want to do. Like I mentioned with MYNZ, Jack number 2, number 7 had the same sentiment for both of these today, which was good to see. I wasn't trading off of that. I just saw that at the end of the day here, but good to see that that was the same thought process that I was having today on this one. And yeah, let it have its little morning sell-off, dip and rip. It breaks above $2 there, which I wasn't the most comfortable with. Like, okay, you should just be dying. You shouldn't have any amount of strength, especially for what little volume was creating that little perk. But okay, do what you want to do. Gets the curl back to VWAP, but then starts building a little bit more, and of course then breaks to the upside there. So cover into that little volume strength 204 on the paper side. For that one, just an interesting chart. They're not going to all be winners, but 50 for 50 on those second day faders, short trades from me today, and keeping the losses small in comparison, keeping the losses half in comparison to those winners. Great practice as well. So idea grade for this trade, a D. Not a complete failure, but it did the opposite of what I thought it was going to do. Execution wise, B. Again, it wasn't perfect, wasn't beautiful, but got the job done. Can't complain at a B. Last chart mentioning IMMX, multi-day mover. Man, this one has just been a nice little crazy watch these past few days. Again, as reference, I didn't write this one down, but it doesn't matter because it's been in the past daily trading recap videos. But as in reading back as well, Jack number 2, number 7 in the chat, he was kind of warning against going short this one, that, hey, I could see this one potentially turning into a short, but this one could certainly be above $8 before you even realize it for how many times it's faked out. Not only yesterday, but also that first green day for how choppy and wicky, even on this 5-minute candle chart here. That's just absolutely crazy to see how wicky it was on that first day. But so respecting that and being aware of that, but also understanding that, as he put it too, of, hey, potentially seeing high to mid $4 by the end of this week could also be a nice potential. So that's what I was playing off of, and starting in with, again, a blanket paper trade entry, shorts, not based on any hard fundamentals or technicals. I'm not on any internals for level 2 time and sales there. Just kind of saying, okay, we're under VWAP. I could see this thing having a little perk. Maybe we get a little VWAP break attempt around $7, but that could be a point of inflection. But I'll just go ahead and start in here mentally with myself to get short. And gosh, yeah, just has an absolute smack. So right out of the gate, just breaks it all the way from 6.8 down to a nice 6.3 area there, so I cover half of that mentally from that immediate and perfect drop, saying I can't turn down this free money. I'm going to take the money when I can, not when I have to, but also keeping in mind what the overall mindset for this trade was, which was what I was thinking the whole time, even before I saw Jack number 2 post that same comment of, hey, I think we're kind of in this little petering out of this multi-day run. I could see this thing having the fall off here, and the daily is certainly showing that type of move that I was looking for in total with this trade. So still have that paper mental trade on of 50 shares left, still on trade for the 100 shares that I initially took there. Took off 50 mentally for that initial first pull, but still leaving on for tomorrow, potentially Friday. Tomorrow is Friday. Potentially leaving on for tomorrow. See what Monday brings for us, if it's still wants to linger around these levels. But yeah, can't really give it a grade right now, but I have to give myself A's for what the idea is right now, for where we're sitting, for taking off money, safe money immediately right away. That appeases my personality as a trader, and being able to sit through it the rest of the day, being able to sit through the little VWAP reclaim attempt and not just chickening out at 6.4 to take off the rest of the shares, but letting it do what it wants to do. Great exercise of this style of trade going forward in the future. Those were all the trades on the day. It's really all I wanted to mention for trades. Kind of watching going into tomorrow, MRIN having a little perk here after the close. Love to see this after hours type of price action. Really just truly wanting to see lack of volume going to continue to come in on this thing. No more high of day attempts after it did have another little VWAP bounce here, moving to a new high of day. Would love to see this thing, or just for the type of playbook trade that I would want to play on this one, I would have to see no more volume coming in, just kind of peter out, get a lot of dojis, a lot of space in between candles printing. Pre-market tomorrow doing the same type of thing, that it just opens a little bit lower, just continues a nice downward slope, and then just market hours as well, just continues that same thing, just nothing coming in on this one. It does have some pretty excellent news. It is a former runner as well. Amazon news catalyst today, which is pumping this thing. Where is it sitting at? Right now, let's see where she's showing, just for reference for me. You are sitting at like 36% percentage move upward, that we're sitting at a $21 million volume. Good to see. Let's bring you back up there, and bam. So keeping our eye on it, see if it wants to do that. I will most probably be paper trading this one short if I am going to be actually trading it there, but most certainly for the educational experience of being a part of that. And then DWAC as well, having a little bit of a run into the close there. Not sure what it wants to do here in after hours, or what it could set up for these next few days, but if we start to see some bases being put in, or little support levels, those could be some nice little scalpy entry points for some maybe more speculative swingy types of longs, as we could be having a nice up move in relation to what it did at the start of December of last month. You could kind of compare it pretty similar, not only candles, but volume candles as well. This may be just another one of those that the next successive days after this one and just end up just being more rent candles, like it did on that December 8th to 9th, 10th, 11th there. Keeping our eyes on it, see if it starts to test some nice levels again. But again, we need that pumper in chief, need that McDonald Trump to just soar this thing to new heights in order to get some actual crazy movement to jump out of it. That is all that I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching this far. We will catch you guys on the next one.